Thank you. I call Jim Fairlie to be followed by Colin Smith.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I'd like to open my contribution today by first of all congratulating Finlay Shand, the Scottish Gamekeepers Association Young Gamekeeper of the Year from the Angus Glens. But there's a question, why would the young get involved? What would be their incentive and how would that be encouraged? They're all perfectly valid questions which require action and engagement if we want to be truly representative. And I have to say I found myself remarkably agreeing with an awful lot of the ambition that Stephen Kerr was just talking about. And I remember meeting a young lad in my constituency by the name of Ben Grant, not long after I was elected to this place. He was attending the Auchterarder Community Action Plan Community Engagement Day, which is a fantastic event allowing the community around Auchterarder to voice their opinions and develop plans for what was happening in the town and what they would like to see happen. Ben was there with his colleague Hannah Lewis, and they were encouraging the young folk of Auchterarder to get involved as members of the Scottish Youth Parliament. He was a member for my constituency of Perthshire South and Gloucestershire, and I was struck by his enthusiasm and his determination that the voices of the young should be heard, and despite him being a member of the Youth Parliament as opposed to the Rural Youth Parliament, he was absolutely advocating for rural areas who face different challenges to their peers in the more urban areas. It was striking and also refreshing, I have to say, to see such a fresh-faced young pair of folk being so passionate and engaged in a sea of middle-aged folk like myself. The youngest... I will indeed, yeah.
Stephen Kerr.
Jim Fairlie's making a really important point, and it's a point I didn't get to, and I hope you'll agree with me. It's good that we have a rural and islands parliament for our young people, but it's actually the need for people who live in rural parts of Scotland and people who live in urban parts of Scotland to come together and try and understand each other's ways of life better, surely.
Jim Fairlie.
As the person who started the farmers' market in Scotland in Perth in 1999 for exactly that reason, yes, I could do nothing more than agree. The youngest member of my office staff in Perth, John Redpath, he stood as a candidate in the Scottish Borders constituency of Ettrick, Roxburgh and Berwickshire. And he was just pipped to the post, but the whole experience for him was bruising, which I'm sure we can all relate to in here, but it was also extremely inspiring, and it enthused him to want to get more involved going forward. He now uses as many opportunities as arise to encourage young folk and his peers to get involved, so that there isn't that malaise which is all too common these days, the "but what can I do" syndrome. And that is the crucial point about the rural parliament and the rural youth parliament. Its purpose is to give voice and to change that phrase from "but what can I do" to simply "what can I do?" I must, of course, give credit to Alistair Campbell, because that is exactly the tack he is promoting in his excellent book of the same name. Now, I couldn't attend the conference last year, but I took great comfort from looking at the website, given details of the programme for the Youth Parliament held in Fort William, and there were some key asks from that session. There's no getting away from the fact that we face some significant challenges, but one particular for young folk is the ability to live in a rural location which doesn't require staying with mum and dad till you save enough money to get a deposit to be able to compete with second home buyers with much, much deeper pockets and only inhabit their home for a few months of the year. With that in mind, I was delighted to see the Government bring forward proposals to allow local authorities to increase council tax on second homes by 100%, with the proceeds going into helping build more rural homes for the future. I may have gone a bit further personally, but at least it's a good start. If you can't get a house, you can't live there. So I'll be very keen to see how the £20 million fund for purchasing unused rural housing stock helps to deliver more rural homes. And at top of the commitment are the 10% of the planned 110,000 homes built that the Cabinet Secretary was talking about. I'm hoping that that's going to improve the number of homes that are available for young people. But I was also intrigued by the proposal, and I quote, that came from the Parliament: "Supermarkets must have a target imposed that a percentage of produce must be offered for sale from their region to reduce food miles and carbon costs, promote food security, recognise quality and high welfare standards of Scottish produce, for example, seafood, protein, fruit and veg, meat, dairy and eggs." Now, that's a proposal well worth drilling into. Not just to have a pop at supermarkets, but a method of finding out how much of that already happens, and more importantly, what more can be done. It will be very interesting from my point of view. Sorry, yep. No, I won't. I've only got a minute and a half left. Sorry. I want to get this point in. I do apologise. It will be very interesting from my point of view to perhaps encourage the Rural Youth Parliament to instigate an inquiry in the same way as committees in this Parliament does, take evidence from the stakeholders and present it as a report of the findings for all of us to scrutinise. If you do take up that challenge, I will be fascinated to find out exactly how they get on with engaging with the supermarkets and how the supermarkets deal with, and I'm speaking from experience here, the very direct questioning that comes from the confidence of youth. I look forward to hearing if that develops and wish the members of the Rural Parliament every success in their endeavours, and I will be paying very close attention to the deliberations of the young people who represent the future of rural Scotland and will have many ideas of what that future looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Fairlie. I call Colin Smith to be followed by Kate Forbes. Mr